feels like the definition that you're kind of giving now, where it's like unwanted sexual contact of like the rectum, vagina, anus, or whatever. In which case, that's kind of the definition I was using before. But then when I say like, oh, I think rape happens because men are too aggressive and women are too passive, and you're like, well, I think that rape is when you rape someone in an alleyway. You think that's a woman being passive? Well, it doesn't really work. I don't know why you're giving me a dictionary definition. I don't care what the dictionary defines it as, because I'm not arguing with the dictionary. I'm arguing with you. So you have to tell me what your definition of rape is. If you want to pick a definition, then sure, go for it.
Because that's not what you're asking me to do regardless. You're asking me to pick one of the several definitions, so why can't I get it?
No, I'm not asking you to pick a definition. My assumption is you had a definition in mind when you asked me the question. So I'm trying to figure out what definition you have in mind.
Unwanted sexual intercourse.
So then I ask again, is when you say intercourse and unwanted, I need you to speak a little bit and give me like a coherent, like it's probably going to take you a couple sentences to get there. Mm-hmm. Like, what does it mean when we say rape? What does that mean? Because unwanted sexual, what do you mean by unwanted, and what do you mean by intercourse? Because fucking somebody's mouth is not technically intercourse, because I think that usually involves a vagina, but you'd probably consider that to be rape, right?
Yeah, that's why I specified and detailed the mouth, the asshole. I think women can rape men. Okay.
What about coercive stuff? Is that rape? Get a girl really drunk, get her in my room. She's not like blackout drunk, but she's a little compromised, and then we have sex. Is that rape?
It depends what definition you're using. That's why
I'm asking you for your definition.
I don't think I have a personal definition.
Then I can't meaningfully answer the question of what is the cause of rape if I don't know what you're asking. What is, I don't know.
Yes, you can, because if I ask you what's the leading cause of rape, you can start by positing your definition and then respond from there. You don't have to respond to something that already
So you want me to give you my definition of rape and then go from there? Do you want me to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, obviously, if I ask you a question, I'm asking you to answer it, to deduce it from your perception of reality and your own definitions.
That's not obvious at all. Usually when people are asking questions, they're usually asking from their frame of reference. It's very unusual that you would ask from another person.
Well, it's an invitation for you to detail your own frame of reference. That's why it's a question.
You're asking a question.
Yes.
So it's probably coming from your frame of reference. Unless you're doing like an interview of me for like a documentary, but you're not. It's like a debate. So you're asking with a definition in mind, probably, right?
Right, but unless I'm setting up the TikTok with putting text on screen saying equals this, you now have, it's fully your prerogative to give your own definition. You act like my TikTok audience is coming in, agreeing with my definition of when I've posited none.
Yeah, but the definition of, if I go into this with no clear definition of rape, then the comments are either going to be neutral to me or fucking horrible. There's no benefit to it being ambiguous.
Right, because you're assuming the default definition of rape differs from your own, so this would be your opportunity to describe what you think rape is.
Okay, if you want me to define it, then I can do that. We can start from there. Do you want me to do that?
Why would you assume the comments would be negative?
Because they could assume a different definition of rape than I'm using, in which case the things that I'm saying come across.
So what do you think their definition is?
It depends on what we're talking about. I don't know.
Why do you think the general consensus would be negative?
I didn't say it would be negative. I said it would be neutral to negative. If they use a definition that's closer to my definition, then it'd be neutral. They just hear what I'm saying. But if they're using a totally different definition, then it's going to be incredibly negative.
So you're not responding to my definition of rape, you're responding to the general culture's consensus. So you should define that, because it doesn't matter what mine is, because I'm not saying what it is.
Okay, am I having a conversation with you, or am I just trying to talk to TikTok?
It sounds like you're doing the latter if you're worried about neutral to negative comments.
No, I'm trying to keep both in mind. We're having a conversation, so I want your definitions, but then I also have to keep in mind, well, how does it look to a general audience if this is going to get clipped?
Then my definition wouldn't matter.
Well, it would, because
you have to be responding to the cultural consensus.
Well, no, because I'm asking you for your definition. If you want to say just give a definition and go, then I can do that.
Okay, define rape and then explain what you find to be the leading cause of it.
Okay. If defining rape in and of itself is kind of the boring word, I think. Okay. I think that the thing that people generally talk about are an idea of rape culture. When I think of rape culture, I think of a culture where men are highly incentivized to pursue and chase using sometimes unsavory means in order to get sex from a woman. And I think combined with the fact that women are conditioned to be relatively passive or accepting of men being assholes, I think that this creates like what we call culture, and the types of unwanted or coercive sexual actions that happen in there are a result of men being too aggressive and women being too passive, and these are things that need to be changed on both ends. That's what I would say.
Cool. So basically in the last video, the discussion that I thought was interesting, like I said, I agree with you. I don't think the interesting discussion is about the definition of rape. So I think we could even just lead out like what is the leading cause of rape and just get into the discussion of women's boundaries, because that was basically what we ended up having the conversation about, right?
Right.
Okay. So what are some ways in which you think women don't assert boundaries?
I think that women should be far more proactive when it comes to keeping guys away that are doing things that are making them uncomfortable, rather than trying to consider the guy's feelings too much or try to do things that they are worried will make the guy feel uncomfortable. Did I say that? Did I say the same thing twice? The example would be that, like, if a guy goes into your house and he starts to do like sexual things with your cat, he's like touching it, he takes his dick out, he's about to fuck the cat. Most people's response would be like a full-throated, "Get the fuck off my animal. What the fuck are you doing?" It would be immediate. Whereas for a guy and a girl doing the exact same thing, and what is arguably a worse crime, being a human versus being a person, the woman would be like, "Oh, I'm not sure if I'm ready. Let's have another drink. Ha ha ha. Like, I don't know, blah, 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 blah." It feels like there's a lot more social anxiety, or there's a lot more conditioned awkwardness, or there's more of a social push for a woman to kind of acquiesce here when the guy's making a hit on her, versus if it was like on an animal, where it would be like a "Get the fuck off my animal." And I feel like the response to the animal should be the response to the person, where it's like if a guy came over and you're trying to fuck your dog, you'd immediately be like, "Stop, this is not happening. What the fuck are you doing?" But when they're trying to rape like a girl or doing like sexually coercive action with a girl, there's like a lot more hesitation there.
I completely disagree. I think the more grotesque the action, the less like you are to say something. Like if you see someone on like Flocka just crawling on all fours trying to eat you, you're gonna have less of an easy time maybe asserting a boundary, because you assume this is someone who it's harder to reason with. So I think if someone takes the step of sticking their dick in your dog, you might be a little bit more horrified. That's why you even hear stories of women who will literally observe their own friends, possibly, or not their friends, but see a woman get raped and they themselves freeze up, because I think even witnessing something horrific, if it's not happening to you, can even be harder.
Okay, so to be clear, you think that if a guy, on an average scenario, the guy was in a house, went over to a girl's house, and the guy, through the course of conversation, takes his dick out and starts to try to have sex with the woman's dog or cat, the woman would sit there quiet and horrified. You think that would be the normal response?
I don't know what the normal response is, because it's not a commonplace or even occasional scenario, but I would assume if I saw something, I would like to think, for instance, when I hear stories of women saying that they freeze up watching other women get raped, it's very easy for me to say, "What the fuck is wrong with you? How can you be a bystander for that?" But then at the end of the day, I've never been in that position. And as much as I can say, no, I would not freeze up and paralyze, I've never been in that situation. So I can say, yeah, I would tell the guy, "Get the fuck off my dog." But I think when you see something really monstrous and grotesque, and that's such a alien experience, how can you know how you're going to respond? You have no schema for that.
Okay, if you can't answer the hypothetical, I don't know how we can pursue anywhere in this, because this is...
Or you cannot base it off the hypothetical, your argument.
I think what the hypothetical says is that in general, when people are doing actions that we find like objectionable, especially things we care about, I think that people are generally very quick to say like, "Hey, stop that, don't do that." If somebody's like tries to hit or kick your animal, it would be like the worst thing in the world. I think that I don't know if you're too hesitant to answer the question because you're worried you're losing a debate or something.
No, I'm not.
But like, I think I would say very easily, without a second thought, that if I went into most women's houses and I started to abuse their animal, they would go fucking crazy. They wouldn't sit there quietly and just watch in horror. I can't imagine any woman having that response. It would be an insane reaction. Yeah. Or to hit their children. But you're telling me why I couldn't even imagine. I don't know. But I do think that when sexually coercive situations happen, because there's a lot more interpersonal dynamics at play, because the woman doesn't want to upset the guy, she's worried that she's been conditioned to be more like accepting of like guys being weird or creepy, that she doesn't have as much assertiveness around her own boundaries because of a lifetime of like letting people be weird or whatever, that like that negotiating that situation for the woman is a lot harder, versus if somebody tries to attack your animal, it's like a much more clear cut stop, don't do that.
I wasn't saying people wouldn't stand up for attacking their animal. You described like a bestiality scenario. Same way, I think if you saw someone fucking a dead body, your reaction would be a lot more horrified. That was my point, is that like you're not talking about someone hitting your dog. I said fucking was a bit weird.
It's the same thing, and the dead body is totally different. But the dead body would fit my example too. If there was like a funeral or something, and you saw somebody walk up to go fuck your dead brother or whatever, you'd probably also be like, "What the fuck are you doing? Get off! This is crazy." You wouldn't just sit there quietly watching. But the corpse is something way different. I'm talking about an animal that's alive in your house. You can see it like a more normal. That's as weird as it is. It's probably more likely to fuck an animal than to fuck a corpse. But you would say something, I would imagine.
Yeah, I guess. Would you agree that it's easier to stand up for someone else than yourself? Like a lot of people have stronger boundaries when it comes to their friends and their family than they do for themselves?
I think it depends